Across the galaxy, in the far reaches of the cosmos, Earth had gained a strange reputation. To the advanced alien civilizations that watched from afar, the planet was nothing more than a defenseless backwater, a place that could be conquered with ease. For centuries, this perception had held steady. Earth, with its primitive technology, its divided nations, and its fragile ecosystem, seemed like an easy target. But there was one thing the aliens didn't understand. Earth wasn't as weak as it seemed. It all began with the Zorathian Empire, a vast intergalactic power that had conquered hundreds of planets across star systems. Their leader, Supreme Commander Xalthor, was a ruthless strategist, a tactician who never lost a battle. The Zorathians had advanced weaponry that could obliterate entire civilizations in the blink of an eye. When they set their eyes on Earth, they saw nothing but a pale blue dot, fragile, weak, and ripe for conquest. Commander Xalthor convened a meeting with his top generals. The planet Earth, orbiting an unremarkable yellow star in the Milky Way galaxy, was an easy prize. No advanced defenses, no vast armies. The reports were clear. Earth was a civilization of primitive beings, stuck in a cycle of constant conflict. It seemed simple: invade, dominate, and harvest resources. Prepare the fleet, Xalthor ordered. We attack in 2 rotations. Earth will fall quickly. The alien fleet, the largest the Zorathian Empire had ever assembled, set course for Earth. As the fleet traveled across the stars, Commander Xalthor couldn't shake a feeling of unease. The reports painted a clear picture of a defenseless planet, but something lingered in his mind. Why hadn't any other advanced species conquered Earth already? Surely, they weren't all blind to its vulnerability. As they drew closer, the alien fleet entered the Earth system, the blue planet coming into view. Xalthor activated his ship's observation screen, examining the primitive human settlements scattered across the planet's surface. Cities, oceans, forests. Earth was beautiful, yes, but also fragile. The technology of the humans was nothing compared to the Zorathian Empire. They had no ships capable of space travel, no weapons that could pose a threat to the invaders. Yet, as the commander continued to observe, something strange happened. The humans, who had been so divided in the reports, appeared to be uniting. A single unspoken force seemed to bind them together, one that the Zorathians had failed to comprehend. "What are they doing?" Xalthor muttered, watching humans move in large groups, collaborating across nations. What struck him as even stranger was the way they communicated. Through television, radio, and even social media, they were uniting in ways that defied logic for such a primitive race. Xalthor called his top advisors together. Why are they not fleeing? Why are they not panicking? "They don't appear afraid, Commander," General Zelok replied, his voice laced with confusion. "Instead, they seem determined, almost as if they are preparing for something, but they don't have the means to defend themselves. Perhaps they are more cunning than we thought," Xalthor mused. "But no matter. We've studied their technology. We can crush them with ease." The Zorathian fleet prepared to strike. Their weapons powered up, their ships taking positions above the atmosphere, ready to unleash hell upon the planet. But just as Xalthor gave the order to fire, a transmission came through. It wasn't from Earth. It was a communication from the Galactic Council. "Commander Xalthor," the voice on the other end began, "we've received troubling news. Earth is not as vulnerable as it appears." Xalthor stiffened. "What do you mean?" "I have studied this planet thoroughly. Their technology is primitive. They have no weapons capable of defending themselves." The transmission continued. "It is not their technology that should concern you, but their history. Earth may seem defenseless, but it is a planet of survivors. You have not seen the full picture. Every time they have been on the brink of destruction, they have fought back. They are resilient beyond measure." Xalthor felt a shiver run through him. "What are you saying? Are you suggesting that Earth is more dangerous than we've been led to believe?" "Yes," the voice replied. Earth's strength lies in its people's will to survive. They will do whatever it takes to protect their planet, even if it means total destruction. They may seem fragile, but they are far more resilient than you realize. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Zalthor with a sense of dread. He couldn't understand it. The reports didn't make sense. His entire empire had studied Earth, and everything pointed to a weak, defenseless species. How could they possibly be more than that? Zalthor sat back in his chair, his mind racing. He had spent years preparing for this conquest. The Zorathians had never failed before. But what if this was different? What if Earth wasn't the easy target they had believed? He ordered his fleet to pause their attack and began to review the archives of Earth's history once more. As he examined the records, certain moments began to stand out. The rise and fall of civilizations, humanity's ability to bounce back after devastating wars, natural disasters, and even near-extinction-level events. The Great Depression, the World Wars, and the atomic bomb. They had all left scars on Earth, yet humans had rebuilt time and time again. One particular event caught his attention: the Cuban Missile Crisis. In this moment, humanity had stood on the brink of nuclear war, but in the end, it was the will of a single leader that prevented global destruction. Zalthor read on, realizing that this was a defining characteristic of Earth, its ability to survive against the odds. This doesn't make sense, Zalthor whispered to himself. They should have perished long ago. Why haven't they? He looked out into space, staring at the planet below. In that moment, he began to realize something terrifying. Earth's true strength wasn't in its technology or its armies. It was in its people's ability to unite, adapt, and fight for their survival, no matter what the cost. Earth had faced destruction countless times, but it had always come out stronger. The Zorathian Empire had underestimated Earth, and now, Zalthor understood the terrifying truth. Humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability was a weapon more dangerous than any technology. He looked at his generals, who had gathered around him, watching him closely. The fear in their eyes was palpable. "Tell the fleet to stand down," Zalthor said quietly, his voice betraying his newfound understanding of Earth's true power. "We will not attack Earth. Not today. Not ever." The generals exchanged looks of confusion, but quickly obeyed, transmitting the order to halt the invasion. As Zalthor stared at Earth, he couldn't shake the thought that no matter how advanced the Zorathian Empire was, it could never fully understand the unpredictable force that was Earth. And that, he now knew, was exactly why Earth would never fall. The Zorathian Empire was one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. Its technology was unmatched, and its warriors were feared across the stars. For centuries, it had conquered planet after planet, leaving nothing but ashes in its wake. No civilization had ever stood a chance against the might of the Zorathians, until, that is, they set their sights on Earth. Commander Zalthor, the supreme leader of the Zorathian fleet, had heard countless reports about the Earthlings. The reports painted them as primitive, divided, and technologically inferior. Their cities were small and scattered, their armies weak and disorganized. Earth's defenses were laughable at best, nothing compared to the advanced weaponry of the Zorathians. The reports had given Zalthor the impression that Earth was a simple prize, waiting to be claimed. But he had learned not to trust simple reports. As the Zorathian fleet approached Earth, Zalthor stood in the command room of his flagship, staring at the blue planet on the large viewing screen. The Earthlings had no idea what was coming. The fleet was vast, and their attack would be swift and decisive. Zalthor gave the order for the fleet to prepare for the assault. Yet, as they drew closer to Earth's orbit, something began to bother Zalthor. He couldn't quite place it, but there was an unease creeping into his mind. The reports had painted Earth as a fragile, vulnerable world. But as he observed the planet, he saw something strange. The Earthlings, despite their divided nations, were united in a way he had never seen before. They didn't seem afraid. They were preparing for something, But Talthor wasn't sure what. His thoughts were interrupted by his second-in-command, General Zalok. "Commander, we've just received another transmission from the Galactic Council," Zalok said, his voice tense. "It's about Earth. They're warning us." Zalthor's brow furrowed. "Warning us? About what?" Zalok's voice dropped to a whisper. "The Council says that Earth is not as defenseless as we think. They say it's not about technology or weaponry. It's something else, something that we don't understand." Zalthor's mind raced. The Galactic Council was rarely wrong. If they were warning him about Earth, then perhaps there was something more to the planet than he had realized. He had to know more. "Show me the transmission," Zalthor ordered. The holo-projector flickered to life, and a voice filled the room. "Commander Zalthor," the voice said, "we are sending this message in urgency. We have observed Earth for millennia, and we've come to one conclusion. Earth's true strength lies not in its technology, but in the resilience of its people. They are survivors. Do not underestimate them." Zalthor listened intently, his mind absorbing the words. The message continued. Humanity has faced extinction time and time again. Every time they've been pushed to the brink, they've fought back. They have an ability to adapt and survive that is unparalleled in the galaxy. When you face Earth, you are not just fighting a planet, you are fighting its will to survive. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Zalthor in stunned silence. What he had been told was unimaginable. Earthlings, a species with no advanced technology, no interstellar capabilities, had survived against all odds. How was that possible? "Prepare a detailed analysis of Earth's history," Zalthor ordered, his voice sharp. "I need to know what makes them tick." The fleet's databanks were quickly accessed, and Zalthor began to sift through Earth's history. The more he read, the more puzzled he became. Earth's history was filled with wars, disasters, and countless near-extinction events. And yet, each time, humanity had rebuilt itself, stronger and more united than before. Zalthor started with the Great War, a massive conflict between Earth's nations that had threatened to wipe out the entire planet. The alien commander watched in disbelief as humanity fought for survival, despite being technologically inferior. Earth's nations may have been divided, but when faced with total annihilation, they had come together. It was a theme he saw again and again. Humanity was resilient. Next, he examined the Industrial Revolution. Humanity had gone from a species living in primitive conditions to creating machines capable of altering the planet's very environment. Even when Earth's ecosystems began to collapse under the weight of industrialization, humans had found ways to adapt and continue. They were relentless, never giving up even when the odds seemed insurmountable. And then there was the Cold War, a period when humanity had stared into the abyss of nuclear annihilation. Zalthor watched as Earth's leaders stood at the brink of total destruction, only to pull back at the last second. Humanity had faced its darkest hour, and yet it had survived. Time and time again, Earth had faced extinction, and each time, the planet had found a way to survive. But it wasn't just humanity's wars and disasters that caught Zalthor's attention. It was their capacity for unity. Earth's people, despite their differences, had managed to come together to face challenges. They had worked together to land on the moon, to send probes to distant planets, to create a global network that connected the entire world. It was this unity, Zalthor realized, that made Earth so dangerous. He watched a transmission of a speech from one of Earth's leaders during the Cold War, a speech that had sparked hope in the hearts of millions. The leader spoke of peace, of overcoming differences, and of building a better future. It was a speech about survival, about never giving up. And it was this spirit that had kept Earth alive, time and time again. The true strength of Earth is not in its technology, Zalthor murmured to himself. It is in the people themselves, their will to survive, their determination, their unity. That is what has kept them alive. The more Zalthor studied Earth's history, the more he began to fear the planet. If the Earthlings were capable of surviving under such harsh conditions, what would they do when faced with an alien invasion? How far would they go to protect their home? His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden alarm. The Zorathian fleet had entered Earth's atmosphere. It was time to make a decision. Zalthor stood at the helm of his ship, staring at the planet below. His fleet was ready, their weapons primed. But the fear that had been creeping into his mind was now overwhelming. He knew that Earth was more than just a weak, defenseless world. It was a planet full of survivors, and that made it more dangerous than any weapon or army. "Hold the attack," Zalthor ordered. His voice was firm, but deep down, he felt the weight of his decision. The Earthlings had earned their place in the galaxy. They were not weak. They were strong, resilient, and unpredictable. The fleet's weapons powered down, and the ships hovered silently above Earth. Zalthor knew that this would not be an easy conquest if it were to happen at all. For the first time, he realized that perhaps Earth wasn't meant to be conquered. Perhaps it was a planet that could never be truly understood by the likes of the Zorathians. As the fleet slowly turned away from Earth, Zalthor made a vow to himself. The Zorathians would never invade Earth. Not now, not ever. The Earthlings had shown him the true meaning of strength. It was not in weapons or technology. It was in their will to survive. And that, he realized, was the most powerful force in the universe. For the Zorathian Empire, conquering planets was nothing new. The Empire had swept across countless worlds, leaving destruction in its wake. Its technology was vast, its armies invincible. No civilization had ever posed a real threat to the might of the Zorathians. That was until they set their sights on Earth. The leader of the Zorathian fleet, Commander Zalthor, was a seasoned warlord. His reputation was built on his ability to conquer with precision, leaving no room for error. For centuries, Earth had been observed by the Empire, and its reports painted a clear picture. Earth was an underdeveloped planet, its inhabitants primitive and divided. It should have been an easy conquest. Yet, as Zalthor sat in the command center of his flagship, looking at Earth through the viewing screen, something gnawed at him. The planet seemed so insignificant in the grand scheme of the galaxy. Its technology was outdated, its military forces fractured and weak. Why hadn't it been conquered already? Why was it still here, unscathed? "Commander," said General Zelok, his voice echoing in the cold, metallic room. "We are preparing to enter Earth's atmosphere. All ships are ready. The fleet is awaiting your command." Zalthor's gaze remained fixed on Earth. The planet, so small and blue against the backdrop of the void, seemed harmless, but the uneasy feeling within him grew stronger. Something was off. He couldn't explain it, but he had learned not to ignore such feelings. "Hold the fleet," Zalthor said, his voice steady but filled with a rare hesitation. "I want to know more about this planet. I want to understand why it hasn't fallen yet." Zelok looked at his commander, puzzled. "But, Commander, the intelligence is clear. This planet poses no real threat. We should strike while we have the advantage." "No," Zalthor replied sharply. "I want to understand what we're dealing with. There's more to Earth than we've been led to believe." The fleet hovered just outside the planet's atmosphere as Zalthor began a deeper investigation into Earth's history. The more he learned, the more unsettling the truth became. The truth unveiled. Zalthor spent hours sifting through Earth's records, diving into the depths of its history. What he found was something no report had ever mentioned. Humanity's past was littered with catastrophe, destruction, and despair. Yet, in each case, Earth's people had not just survived. They had thrived. Every time Earth seemed to face certain extinction, something incredible happened. Humanity fought back. The Zorathian Empire had underestimated Earth's ability to endure, to adapt, and most importantly, to fight when pushed to the edge. All four began with the Great Wars. The records spoke of the World Wars, two devastating conflicts that nearly wiped out all of humanity. The first war had decimated entire continents, and the second war had brought the planet to the brink of annihilation. Yet, against all odds, Earth rebuilt itself, stronger and more determined than ever. There was something in the human spirit, a survival instinct that refused to be extinguished. It wasn't just wars that humanity had endured. Natural disasters, plagues, famines, and even environmental destruction had ravaged the planet. Yet time and time again, humanity had found ways to recover. The more Exalfor studied, the more he realized that Earth's true strength wasn't in its technology, its weapons, or its armies. It lay in the hearts of its people. But the most disturbing part of Earth's history came from a series of events that the Zorathians had never anticipated. Humanity's ability to destroy itself, only to rise again. Exalfor studied the events of the Cold War, when the world's superpowers had stood on the brink of nuclear war. Humanity had the power to destroy itself in a heartbeat, yet somehow it had held back. Every time Earth was pushed to the brink, there was something within the human race that stopped them from crossing the line. They were capable of unimaginable destruction, but they were also capable of great restraint. Then, Exalfor uncovered the most chilling truth of all: humanity's ability to adapt to any situation. It wasn't just their survival instinct, it was their adaptability. Humans had learned to coexist with their environment, to manipulate their surroundings, and to find solutions even when there seemed to be none. Their ingenuity and creativity allowed them to overcome impossible odds. The deadly truth. As Exalfor continued his research, one particular moment in history caught his attention. It was the moment humanity had unlocked the power of nuclear energy. The Zorathians had long known of Earth's nuclear capabilities, but what Exalfor didn't realize was the profound impact it had on the human psyche. It was a double-edged sword. While humanity had the ability to destroy the planet with a single misstep, they also had the power to harness that energy for their own survival. Exalfor watched as humanity came to terms with its own destructive potential. The realization that they could obliterate their world made them more cautious, more determined to protect it. And that, Exalfor realized, was the key to understanding Earth's true strength, its ability to hold back from destruction, even when the temptation was overwhelming. The more he learned, the more it became clear. Earth's true strength was not in its weapons or armies, but in its people's ability to change, adapt, and unite. They could endure pain, suffering, and loss, but they would never give up. And when Earth was pushed to the edge of destruction, it was the human will to survive that prevailed. Exalfor could now see the deadly truth. Earth was not as weak as the Zorathian Empire had believed. It was not a planet to be conquered. It was a planet that could conquer itself. The human spirit, combined with their adaptability and resilience, made them an unstoppable force. They had the power to destroy everything, but they also had the power to rebuild. And that made them the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever encountered. The decision. With the fleet still hovering just outside Earth's atmosphere, Exalfor now faced a choice. The Zorathian Empire was powerful, but even with all its might, it could not overcome the deadly truth he had discovered about Earth. To invade now would be to risk everything. The humans would fight back, not just with their weapons, but with their will to survive. And if they were pushed far enough, they would destroy everything in their path, including the Zorathian fleet. Exalfor stood at the helm of his ship, looking at the planet below. He had seen the truth, and now he understood the real danger. Earth was not the easy target he had been led to believe. In fact, it was far more dangerous than any of the other civilizations the Zorathians had conquered. He turned to General Zelok, who had been silently watching the commander's contemplation. "Tell the fleet to stand down," Exalfor ordered. His voice was calm, but his mind was racing. "We are not going to invade Earth." Zelok was taken aback. "Commander, what are you saying?" "The fleet is ready. We have the advantage." "I understand that, General," Exalfor replied, "but we cannot win this war. not in the way we've been thinking. Earth is too powerful, not because of its weapons, but because of its people. We cannot defeat them by force alone. If we attack now, we risk everything. And we are not prepared to face what they can do. The fleet slowly turned away from Earth, its ships moving into the vastness of space. Zalthor watched the planet recede from view, knowing that Earth would not be easily defeated. But what truly troubled him was the realization that the Zorathian Empire had underestimated the most dangerous force in the universe: the human spirit. Commander Zalthor stood silently in the command room of his flagship, staring at the blue and green planet that hung like a jewel in the void of space. Earth. It was beautiful in its fragility, its oceans, forests, and continents all so inviting and yet so vulnerable. For centuries, the Zorathian Empire had observed it, and after careful study, they had concluded that Earth was an easy target, a weak, divided planet full of primitive inhabitants, far beneath the sophisticated technology and military might of the Zorathian Empire. Yet, as the Zorathian fleet had drawn nearer to Earth, Zalthor had begun to feel an unease that gnawed at him. This wasn't the first time the Zorathian Empire had set its sights on a planet it considered weak, but Earth felt different. There was something about it that defied all logic, something that made Zalthor pause before giving the order to strike. As the fleet continued its journey towards the planet, Zalthor called for a meeting of his senior officers. "General Zalok, what is the status of our attack?" Zalthor asked, his voice firm but troubled. Zalok, his second-in-command, looked up from the data screens in front of him. "All systems are ready, Commander. The fleet is poised for strike, and the weapons are primed. We will have Earth subdued within a matter of hours." Zalthor hesitated. He looked back at the planet. "I studied Earth's history, General. I studied its people. We've been told that they are primitive and divided. But there is something we are not seeing." Zalok raised an eyebrow. "Commander, what are you suggesting? We have overwhelming strength. There is no need for hesitation." "I am not suggesting hesitation, General," Zalthor replied, his voice cold. "But I believe we are missing something crucial. I want to understand why Earth has never fallen before. Why have other civilizations failed to conquer it? Why has this planet remained standing, despite all the odds?" Zalok seemed puzzled, but he obeyed. "Very well, Commander. We will re-examine the records." As the officers began to dig deeper into Earth's history, Zalthor reviewed the data once more. Humanity's past was filled with conflict, destruction, and chaos. The world wars, the rise and fall of empires, the countless conflicts that had scoured the Earth's surface. And yet, despite all this, Earth had always come back. The more Zalthor studied, the more he was confronted with a paradox. Earth's true power lay not in its technology or military strength, but in something far more dangerous: its people's indomitable will to survive. The revelation. The more Zalthor learned, the clearer the truth became. Humanity had endured wars, famine, and environmental devastation. They had even created weapons of mass destruction, nuclear weapons capable of wiping out entire continents. But what truly set Earth apart was the way humanity had always found a way to survive, adapt, and rebuild. Zalthor studied the rise of the human spirit in the face of adversity. During the Great War, when Earth's nations were torn apart by conflict, humanity found a way to unite in the aftermath, rebuilding from the rubble. During the Cold War, when the world was on the brink of nuclear annihilation, humanity managed to pull back from the edge, choosing survival over self-destruction. The turning point for Zalthor came when he discovered the true nature of Earth's ability to survive. It wasn't just in their capacity for destruction. Earth's people had an innate ability to adapt, to rise from the ashes of their own mistakes. The more Zalthor learned about humanity's response to crisis, the more he realized that Earth's strength was not in its weapons, its armies, or its technology. It was in its ability to learn from the past and to evolve. He watched footage of Earth's leaders during the darkest days of the Cold War. They had held their ground, not by using force, but by negotiating, by finding ways to bridge the gaps that divided them. Zalthor saw how Earth's people, though divided at times, could come together when faced with annihilation, and that, he realized, was the true power of Earth. But the true revelation came when Zalthor studied humanity's adaptability. The way they had adjusted to the ever-changing circumstances of their world was nothing short of miraculous. From the Industrial Revolution to the Space Age, Earth's people had constantly reinvented themselves. They had adapted to every challenge they faced, whether it was technological, environmental, or political. They were a species that had learned how to survive even the worst of circumstances. Zalthor began to understand that Earth was not merely a planet of survivors. It was a planet of overcomers. Earth's greatest strength lay not in its ability to endure, but in its ability to overcome. Humanity didn't just survive disaster, they emerged stronger from it. The final choice. As Zalthor continued to study Earth's history, the true scale of humanity's strength became more apparent, and with this understanding came a new fear. The Zorathian Empire was mighty, but the more Zalthor learned, the more he realized that no military force could defeat Earth, not in the way they had expected. This was not a planet that could be conquered with brute force alone. Earth's strength was in its people. And if the Zorathians attacked, they would face something far more dangerous than an army. They would face humanity's will to survive, its determination, and its ability to adapt and overcome. It was then that the final revelation struck Zalthor. This wasn't just about defeating Earth. This was about understanding the true nature of strength. The Zorathians had been searching for power in technology and military might, but they had overlooked the most powerful force in the galaxy, the will to survive. And that was something no weapon could defeat. Zalthor turned to General Zalok, his face a mixture of awe and apprehension. "We cannot invade Earth," he said quietly. Zalok blinked in disbelief. "Commander, are you sure?" "The fleet is prepared. We can strike now, before they have a chance to react." "No," Zalthor replied. "I've seen enough. Earth is not what we thought. We were wrong to think that we could conquer them. The true strength of Earth lies not in its technology, but in its people. Their will to survive is unlike anything we have ever encountered." Zalok shook his head, trying to comprehend what Zalthor was saying. "But we are the most powerful empire in the galaxy. We cannot back down now." "We must," Zalthor said firmly. "If we attack Earth, we risk everything. They will not surrender. They will fight back with everything they have. And they will never stop." Zalthor turned his gaze back to Earth, the blue planet spinning in the vastness of space. "We have underestimated them for too long. Earth is not defenseless. It is powerful beyond measure. The true strength of this planet is not in what it has, but in what its people are willing to do to protect it. And that is something no empire, no army, no force in the galaxy can ever defeat." The decision. Zalthor gave the order to retreat. The Zorathian fleet, once poised for battle, slowly turned away from Earth, retreating into the depths of space. As the ships disappeared into the stars, Zalthor stood at the helm of his flagship, his mind racing with the knowledge that Earth was far more formidable than they had ever imagined. The Zorathians had been wrong. Earth was not a planet to be conquered. It was a planet to be respected. And Zalthor knew, with a deep certainty, that no matter how powerful the Zorathian Empire was, they would never be able to defeat Earth, not in the way they had thought. As the last of the fleet vanished into the void, Zalthor made a final vow. Earth would not be invaded, not by the Zorathians, not by anyone. The true strength of Earth lay in its people, and that was a force that could never be overcome. And for the first time in his life, Zalthor understood what it meant to truly respect a planet.